Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Son of a Witch podcast with your favorite witchy podcast host, Mike and Rania. We are back. That's right. We have been teasing you, and not purposely, but teasing you and kind of enticing you and letting you know that things were coming. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a quick introduction as to why all that occurred. But first, say hello to your new lovely co-host, Miss Rania.
Hi, everyone.
She is coming to us early morning from Greece, and I am coming to you, well, technically early morning from the States. But it's dark here and daylight there. So yeah, we are glad to be here. It's been a little bit of a ride, hasn't it?
It has. It has. It has.
Just in the first week and a half of us starting this venture, there have been some different little glitches and issues behind the scenes that we've been working on. One of which the platform host, Captivate, had thrown a little bit of a wrench in the works by stating that all of it to say they only accepted cards from a federally recognized bank, and I use Venmo, so they wouldn't take my payment, and that delayed us a bit. And then we had several brainstorming sessions, one of which I was talking to Rania on the beach and got accosted by an angry Christian person who did not like my conversation after the fact, but zero cares there. And so all that to say, we've been working diligently behind the scenes. Just today, we had a call with someone from our chosen tradition. They are very well known and loved and respected, just an amazing soul, and had them on just for a brainstorming session. And we are recording later in the month with them. So if you are a Cabot, keep your ears open for that, because you're going to love this guest. And I'm speaking for myself, but I think Rania agrees with me that
it's going to be very exciting.
Yeah, and just the topic itself is we almost had a full episode today. we talked for about 2 hours and didn't even realize it. So really fun conversation, and we're really looking forward to that. Also got a really big author that has agreed to come on the show anytime, as they put it. And so we're trying to get a date to record that. This author has got loads of books that many of you have probably read. She's done forewords and contributed to other books numerous times. So been a favorite of mine for a long time and have wanted to have them on. They have a new book coming out, and we're hoping to get them on right around the time of that release, or shortly thereafter at least, to talk about that. So that's also something really interesting. And won't go, that's already pretty vague, but and Rania's just kind of getting used to this. All the listeners know that I tend to be a little vague, but I have fun with it, and there are reasons, but we won't get into that. But anyway, there are some other, one is an author, one is a demonologist. There's several other people that are in the wings that I'm working on, so we will be getting around to that. The other thing, and this has been probably the biggest learning curve for Rania and I, is the time while.
Well, we work around it.
We do.
We work around it.
We do. But pretty much anytime you hear the two of us, one of us is either up really late at night or really early in the morning, and vice versa. Mm-hmm. So, but it works. So now, all that out of the way. So I just wanted to give everybody kind of a heads up, because I feel bad. We keep trying to give you as much information as we can. And what's going to happen, I think I mentioned this on the Instagram account, but we had already recorded an episode where we basically introduced Miss Rania and let her kind of give you some background into her journey into this path and everything else. And we're going to do that. I may, and I'm saying this now because we're recording this, it is now a little after 2 a.m. in the States, Eastern time, on Monday. and approaching Tuesday. Or no,
Mhm.
it is Tuesday.
No, it's Monday.
Okay, so it's approaching Tuesday. Yeah. Anyway, I get
Yeah.
confused. But so yeah, I take that episode, the introduction, and this one because it is on a time crunch, and we're trying to get it out to all of you as fast as possible. So after we record this, I'm going to do some really wild editing. So don't judge me when this comes out. It may not be up to my normal standards, but we're just excited to get it out. The topic we're about to dive into with you on this episode is really fun. You've probably seen that it was dubbed Deity's Spirit and Vision Oh My, just kind of a play on the lions, tigers, and bears thing. But yeah, we're going to dive in and touch on a little bit of all of that.
Mhm.
Anya separately and I have some pretty wild stories that we're going to share. And then we've got a lot of synchronicities between the two of us since we've met that have been pretty insane too. So
Yes.
we're going to touch on that a little bit, but this whole episode is basically just going to be kind of highlighting how some of us go about receiving information from spirit or deities, different. And we'll say visions a lot. She and I call them visions typically, but when we say that, it can be a dream. It can be when you're meditating or when you're at an alpha brain wave level, meditating, and you have kind of like an epiphany or, just an insane visual experience. It can be any of that. So some people may call it dreams. Some people may call it visions. Some people may call it downloads. I say downloads a lot because I end up getting like what I feel like are data dumps of information sometimes that was not there a few minutes ago, but is now suddenly there. Now, I'm not talking like I'm Rain Man or, like that movie Limitless where I can take a pill and suddenly I have like full brain capacity, nothing like that. But there have been situations where at the end of it, I go, how the fuck did I know what I was talking about just then? Like, I don't even remember.
You can't get a full grasp
Exactly
of what happened.
I mean, that's probably happened to you, right?
Of course it has.
Yeah.
And then you just sit there and like, oh, that just happened.
Exactly. So a lot of people call it deja vu, but it happened with me. And when I say when I got here with me, if you've been paying attention, at Son of a Witch Pod on Instagram, if you don't follow that, I don't know what's wrong with you. You need to get with the cool kids and go do that. But basically, deja vu, for me, I'll have dreams or visions, maybe, and then I won't remember it necessarily when I wake up, but it could be months later, it could be years later, and I'll be somewhere and I'm like, holy shit. And again, I get one of those downloads, it feels like, and I'm like remembering that dream vividly from when I had it all of a sudden and realizing that, and that's what happened when I got here to the beach. And that's what I meant by you should be paying attention because I now live at the beach and it's fucking amazing. But when I got here, I walked out on the beach and that was the moment I had the pier that's off to the side and just some other landmarks. And we'll get into that, this a little bit more in the episode. But since being here, I've kind of had some interactions with Lord Poseidon, and he's taken great joy in toying with me and messing with my head as they like to do. So basically, I think what we talked about, and I think it'd be a good place to start, Rania, is why don't you tell the listeners about what led to your trip to Delphi?
What led my trip to Delphi? Well, for a while now, I was being called by the god Apollo to go home. I couldn't understand what home meant until I had one of those visions of him literally showing me that I have to go there so I can have the download, like you said, like of information. But when I got there, it was a surreal experience where you felt like you were there in that time when the temple was working and people were all over. It's like you stepped into this different time frame.
It's similar to like a past life regression, maybe.
Like a past life regression. And
that's called foreshadowing, listeners. That'll come up later in the episode, but carry on. Go ahead.
It did feel like I've been there before. It felt home, basically, the way he worded it to me. And just being called there was something very extraordinary. It took me about 6 years to figure out that Apollo was trying to contact me, get my attention, until I had that aha moment. It's like, oh, so it was you all this whole time. And yeah, it took me a while. But he's one of the main deities I work with. He's super protective, very caring. And when he wants something, he'll get it. Like he wanted me in Delphi, he found a way for me to go to Delphi, which isn't exactly the easiest thing. Yes, we're in Greece, but it's many hours apart from where I am.
How long did it take you to get there?
Well, I mean,
after you had that vision or, down.
The vision was about, let's say around May, that he's like, okay, you're going to Delphi, you're coming home. And then it dawned on me where home was. And it took about a few months, so to say, to actually plan it out. It happened pretty quickly and in a very spontaneous way of requesting from the universe that I would like a very nice trip to Delphi. And it just happened within 4 days of asking. And I haven't been there at all. And I could feel the energy just taking that turn before you would enter Delphi, the town. I got the goosebumps and I'm like, we're here, we're home. And that's when I just saw the temple on my right-hand side. And I cried like a baby. I didn't want to leave. And he found a way to talk to me through people, which was very odd when you have random people telling you, for instance, you bought a ticket to go to the temple, to the archaeological site. And the ticket woman's like, no, you can't go to the museum now because you need to go to the temple. And I'm like, okay, but I would like to go see the museum. And she's like, no, you don't have any time. You need to leave now. So I ended up leaving right away, going to the temple where I met him, saw him through meditation, and again, felt that void, felt that magnetic field, seeing how it was back then and living like that whole deja vu that you were in a past life there. So that was pretty intense.
And listener, I'll tell you, I saw pictures of that trip and the energy is palpable and almost visual in some of those pictures. So it's pretty amazing.
It is. It is. It's an experience where when your patron god or goddess calls you to a place where they're worshipped and you can feel their presence and see them and have them talk to you in different ways, either through someone or seeing them or feeling them. It's an amazing experience.
And so when you were there, you had your download. I
had that download. I had just this information that there was no way I could have known before.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love mythology. I love learning about my heritage, but there were things that there was no way that you could know unless you really read back into different things. Like, I just knew things automatically.
Wow, that has never happened to me.
It will. It will.
Oh no, as we know, it has and continues to, and it's a source of great entertainment at this point. So basically, you did a ritual, a spell, whatever, anybody refers to it. Mm-hmm. You petitioned it, you manifested it, and 4 days later it occurred.
And 4 days later, it just happened. And he wanted me to go. He's like, you're coming home? I'm like, okay, where is home? Can you please elaborate on that? But yeah.
Manifestation is a powerful tool. Maybe an episode coming up soon about that. Don't know. Maybe. Who knows? But yeah, that's an awesome story. I love hearing her tell that. So yeah, just to give you some insight as to the fact that petitioning for something and visualizing it happening and manifesting it into reality can happen. And sometimes it can take time. Sometimes it can happen damn near instantaneously, as it happened in Ranya's situation. So just to kind of give you all, like, some of our listeners, Ranya, are what I consider as a military guy, veteran, which is,
mm-hmm.
They've been doing this a while, and then some are just starting out. So I like to give some background from different people and how they approach things and how they see things and view things, because not everybody's the same. The person we were talking to earlier, we asked them, how they kind of perceive these types of things. And it was similar in a way to mine. I won't go into that because we'll save it for the episode. But I know some people that audibly hear, and that actually happened with me with Akate. She basically screamed in my ear in my laundry room, but will audibly hear a deity or spirit talking to them. And then there's some that just kind of have a feeling, or it's kind of just a thought that pops in their head, or they get a sign or whatever. So, and sometimes deities, like I have some that will bounce around, sometimes they're all about giving me signs and being very cryptic. And then sometimes, they kind of,
they're straightforward.
Yeah. It's just kind of like, this is what you do, go do it, and so it's interesting. But you mentioned something that and this, I think it kind of segues really well into it, but when your patron deity kind of tells you, hey, it's time to come back to the house, it's time to come home, you pretty much better listen. And they get really insistent. So what I want to segue into, and you may know what I'm talking about, is when Rania and I met, and I'll give a little backstory into this real quick because it does kind of apply, I guess, but we are of the same tradition. We took our first and second classes together with a bunch of our other friends and family and things like that. But she and I just kind of, I don't even know initially, I can't even remember now. I think we just started chatting or something like that.
Yeah, but it was right after class.
But yeah, I think we just started chatting or whatever. But we both could just tell that we kind of vibrated at a similar level and just kind of understood each other and clicked, I guess you could say. And I do that a lot, and I've talked about it on the show before. I won't say a lot, but most of my really close friends, in some way, I feel like I've known in a previous life or whatever else. Again, foreshadowing, past life regression. So yeah, all that to say, Rania and I, and we'll touch on some more things that have happened as we go through this episode. But over the years, she and I have had a lot of synchronicities. There are times when we'll just be doing a video chat, just catching up, or just on Facebook Messenger chatting back and forth. And I'll be like, oh my gosh, I've got to tell you about this dream I had or this experience I had. And I'll start telling her. And if we're video chatting, the other's face just kind of goes blank. And it's like, holy shit. I had pretty much that exact same, vision or dream or whatever. And to the point that even now, as it's gone on, and keep in mind, I have to remind myself of this, but she and I have only known each other about a year. And because of past life regression, we've realized that there's reasons that we kind of feel like we've known each other forever, because we kind of have, in a way, I guess. So, yeah, it's really weird. We've only known each other a year, but a lot's happened in that year. And we'll kind of go into that. But what I'm babbling about, and, listeners, y'all are used to this. Rania is not, but Mike tends to just get sidetracked and go off on tangents. Part of it could be related to THC. I'm not saying it is. Part of it could be that it's late at night, but luckily I have my beautiful cohort here with me to save me. So basically what I'm leading up to, sis, is you back in the early stages of us just meeting, pulled some cards and kind of had some information. I mean, she just messages me one day and she's like, oh my gosh, I've got to tell you something. It's about you. And I'm like, what? So why don't you, if you, as well as you can remember, kind of tell them how you went about that?
Well, I was guided to pull those cards. Something told me, it's like, you need to look into this. I did a combination of meditating and pulling past life cards at the same time, in alpha brain state. And we kind of uncovered that we have a past life, maybe more than one, that connect us, and through people that I know here as well, that kind of tie things in together. It was an experience where you couldn't really explain how and why. And I mean, without saying any names or anything like that.
Yeah, which we're not going to do because it's not.
Which we're not going to do.
Other person.
But through that person, we kind of figured out why we have a connection and basically why I have the connection with that person. So it kind of tied in together, seeing how that was carried on from past life to this life and why this whole thing kind of manifested and kind of like webbed together, so to say.
It was really the way I remember
it was intense.
It really was, because I remember, as a matter of fact, I was in my studio about to record an episode, and she reached out and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I've got, this information I need to tell you." And I think it initially, this mutual friend of ours, more so with Rania, because she lives in Greece, but she had heard the show
and felt that connection as well.
And felt a connection with me and wanted to know. It's funny because she asked Rania if she could reach out to me and message me, and I'm like, everybody else does. I don't see why not. But so yeah, and she and I started talking, and we realized that we had that connection. And then, like Rania said, we realized all three of us were in a way kind of connected. But it was really, it's hard to kind of give you a whole lot of detail, because maybe one day we'll see if we can have that person on the show and we'll talk about it if they're comfortable with it. But yeah, it was really wild the way it kind of played out. And then we started kind of going back and forth, like, okay, well, I'm going to do a past life regression. You go pull these cards, and each of those two things would kind of line up.
They would connect in a way that made sense.
Yeah, and it was the regressions. I told you, foreshadowing. The past life regressions. Rania and I, and again, I can. If you want to know more about past life regressions, I'm hoping to do an episode, she and I, on this, because we've both had a lot of experience with it. But if you want to know more about past life regressions, message us. One of us will get back to you and, kind of point you in the right direction with some books or websites or something. We know of a specific way within our tradition of doing it. And it's not night and day different from other methods that I've seen. It's just unique. And because, it's within our tradition, we're not going to share that. But the regression, I had tried it in different methods. This was the first time as a Cabot that I was using, the method we used. And it was insanely realistic. Like it got funny too. But it was the first time I'd ever been in anything like that, to where I could touch something and feel it. I could smell things. I was literally, like, physically in every way, as far as I was concerned, there. I saw the connection between me and this other person. I got to, it was so realistic and such it was such a happy feeling there. It was a very small, almost like Hamlet or something, just a very small village. Very medieval-esque, I guess you could say. And I won't go into too much detail, but it was just a very warm, happy, it was the happiest I'd ever felt. And I remember telling Rania that. And the reason I told Rania that is because this one particular night, all three of us are just feverishly messaging back and forth. You remember that?
I remember that.
And we would all like be sharing, oh, guess what I just saw, or guess what I just, figured out, and we're all like, and all the weird thing is it was batshit crazy because they all kind of lined up with one another. But I remember, like, the next morning or something, we were talking, and I remember going, I can't fucking sleep, man. Like, I'm just so wired.
You were wired up.
And she's like, well, what have you been doing? I'm like, going back into those past life regressions. And she's like, well, to do that, you have to be at an alpha brainwave level. And, I'm like, well, yeah, I know that. And she's like, well, how many times have you done it? And I'm like, I really like the feeling. She's like, but how many times? And I'm like, I don't know, 5 or 6.
And you're never going to sleep after that.
Yeah. And some of you may not know, but there are a lot of methods out there that, have determined that when you're in an alpha brainwave level, you can just function and do things better. But the trick to that is when you go into that level, your body is resting at like a rapid rate. So, 15 minutes in there is, equivalent to a lot more than 15 minutes. And so here I am going back to back to back, going, why the fuck can't I go to sleep? I don't understand it. I haven't drank coffee or anything. And when she said that, I was just kind of like, what a dumbass, you know? But yeah, you live and you learn. So
yeah, you do.
But that was a really funny experience. So I'm trying to think, you know, we've brainstormed several times about what we were going to talk about in this episode. So let's go back to that. So you pulled cards and you kind of got, see, listener, behind the scenes, and you'll come to learn this. For a while now, shortly after I met her, I have referred to Rania as the Oracle. I'm fairly convinced she's a reincarnation of the Oracle. So you pulled the cards, and you more or less had a message for me from somebody. Do you remember that?
From Zeus.
Yeah.
Yeah, from Zeus. He's been reaching out, and by the time he was around you, he was around me at the same time. So that's a synchronicity there. And basically, through me telling you, you need to come to Greece.
Yeah. And see, imagine, I can't remember, was that pre or post past life regression craziness?
I think that was after the past life craziness.
Okay. So
then the whole calling of the gods happened. Like, you need to come to Greece. And I had to carry that message to you saying, okay, it's kind of time for you to come here, I guess. I don't know why, but you have to.
And I remember when she told me that, it was a very powerful kind of feeling. I mean, I had worked with Zeus off and on, but never like at that point consistently, I don't guess you could say. I guess the only one at that point that I'd really consistently worked with was Kate. But yeah, and so I remember feeling like overwhelmingly, as soon as she told me that, like, holy fuck, I've got to get to Greece like right now. You remember that? I mean, I was like frantic going, I'm going to figure out a way to get there like next week, you know? And
he was very persistent. Like, he needs to come, you know, to Greece. And I'm like, okay, I'll tell him.
And he still is. I mean, he apparently wants me to go to his birthplace, which, and here's another little
ironically,
that's what, 30 minutes from where you live?
It's about 30 minutes. The oldest temple of Zeus in Arcadia, his birthplace. And I ironically live very close to that place, which we're both being called to that area for some reason.
Yeah, she's been called to that same area. So I don't know. I think what is happening is Zeus has gotten together with Apollo and possibly Poseidon, and we'll get into that in a minute too. But I think they've just deemed me and Rania that we're going to take over the world. And so they're basically just grooming it. I don't know. But yeah, it's really weird. They're all, we laugh about it a lot because there's nothing you could do but laugh. But
they're very persistent.
That's the thing. They're very persistent. But when she and I look at our respective deities or whatever and go, all right, can you just like give me some kind of inclination as to what? Nope. And they're like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that.
No, you'll see. That's their answer. You will see. And they kind of leave you wondering, what are you going to see?
Exactly. I was telling Rania before we started recording that the only thing I get when I consistently ask, whether it be Zeus, whether it be Poseidon, because, and we'll touch on that in a second too, but I'm in the middle of a sibling rivalry apparently right now. But when you're being called, I mean, they almost take great joy in seeing our confusion and frustration. And sometimes it's funny even to me. And then sometimes I'm like, all right, WTF. I mean, like, for real. There's cryptic and then there's like super cryptic, and you're like
but there's a reason for that. I mean,
there is.
They can't just give it to you. You kind of have to find that way. It's like your path of finding out the reason that they kind of guide you, but it's up to you. Like, if you truly want to find that reason why they are calling you. So
it's funny, you'll know what I'm talking about when I say this, but in the call we had earlier with our future guest, that person said, they referenced Kabbalah and the tree of life and how, you go up and you get tried and, tested, and then you may go back down. And I think as soon as they said that, I was like, that was last year for me. That's exactly what that was. It was just consistently trying to see, okay, is he going to stay down or is he going to keep getting up? All right, cool. So he keeps getting up. But it's weird how the gods have to be like just bomb chess players. I mean, because they think so many moves in advance that it's just unreal. Because part of that epiphany or that deja vu moment or whatever you want to call it, when I walked down onto the beach the first day I moved here, was like, okay, it was almost like a brief mini download. I was going through the past year and 3 months of my life, and I'm like, okay, all those times I was like, well, why the hell is this happening? I don't want this to happen. Oh, well, I really wanted that to happen. Why didn't that happen? And then as I look at it, it's like the pieces of the puzzle kind of pop together, and it's like, okay.
Dig together.
And that's when I'm like looking out at the ocean going, all right, seriously, dude? Like, seriously, you could have just told me this a year ago and saved me like all that grief and anxiety and, and even... And it sounds weird to say this, but even losing my mom and losing my stepmom and losing my grandma, I think all that, and it's hard to explain in a brief time. It may be something we touch on another episode, but there are certain reasons that all that seems to have kind of pieced together, and it's brought me here. Now, since being here, Rania and I have discussed, and actually our respective deities have been kind of like seemingly, I don't know, it's seemingly like they're working together behind the scenes, but they're not really giving either one of us information at all. So I don't know, it's weird. The whole reason that we're doing this show together right now is, I mean, not that I would be opposed to having Rania as my co-host, but it's just kind of like spirit's like, okay, look, you're doing this. Show's getting to the point that you need help, and this is who it's going to be. Now, when I found that out, I was like, well, fuck yeah, that's the only person I'd have picked anyway. But so yeah, it worked out, but it's kind of like this is even part of, and again, I can't get too much into it right now because I'm still trying to piece it together, but this is even part of the grand master plan. Part of it included me being here at this beach. Part of it included me forming a relationship with Poseidon, who I've never really worked with. I've always been drawn to water. I've always felt more powerful and peaceful around water, but I've never worked with him. But he's made it very clear that I'm going to. And so, yeah, all that, it's all kind of pieced together. And it's really wild. And we'll kind of, maybe that can be a segment, because literally, listener, the two of us have some sort of like crazy, what was it this morning? We're talking about the upcoming call, and I'm like typing, okay, I'm going to hop in the shower, then I'm going to get the call ready, and then I'll call you right before we do the call. And as soon as I hit send, hers popped up and said literally almost verbatim the exact same thing. And I know to a lot of people, they're like, well, that's just a coincidence. But when it happens all the time, so maybe we should just do a segment called, weird synchronicities or something. And we'll just talk about the weekly happenings that happen between the two of us. But it's pretty wild. And for example, and I'm going to tell you this because it's kind of personal, but I want to tell it because I want people to know that you can do these types of things and get an answer. Sometimes it takes time. Sometimes they're like, yep, here I am. But the other night I'm walking because I have been drawn to Poseidon since being here at the beach. And I don't think it's just because I'm at the beach. I think it's all kind of conspired to this point. But I was talking to Rania about it a couple times. And one night I just went out on the beach with a flashlight and I'm walking. And at night on this beach, there's not a whole lot out there because during the day, people hit the beach first thing at sunrise. They get all the really good shells. And then throughout the day, they just pick through the rest of it. And then by the time nightfall comes, there's not much there. And I'm walking and I'm like, just literally like a crazy person. Luckily, the ocean drowns out the noise, but I'm literally looking out at the ocean going, all right, seriously, I'm like here. I'm here. I'm standing right freaking here. Like, just tell me what you want me to do. What is it I was brought here for? Just give me like some kind of sign. If it's you that's calling me, then tell me. Like, just tell me it's, and I think that's what I said. If you're not going
That's
to
what you
tell
said.
me what I need to do, then at least tell me it's you. And within like 2 minutes, I almost tripped over, and I'll post this on the page, but I almost tripped over a massive conch shell, which are not, I mean, I've found smaller ones, but most of the time, even when you find those, they're broken. I mean, this conch shell was like near mint condition, looked like it had even been polished, had an amazing color to it, and just laying on the beach. And it was almost kind of like, all right, asshole, you're going to try me? Here you go. And I'm probably sure he probably tried to hit me with it and just, his aim was a little off. But like, yeah, go ahead and test me. But things like that happen. You can talk to them
And they give you signs.
sometimes they just fuck with you. I'm not even gonna sugarcoat it. They take great joy in just fucking with us sometimes.
It's because they want you to figure it out on your own. They're like, okay, come on, figure it out. It's your time to figure it out.
I'll say most of the time I agree with her on that. But then part of the time, just a little bit of the time, they just enjoy fucking with us. Not in a mean way,
Sometimes.
but just a playful, like, I was joking with her yesterday. I said, they're probably like, hey, did she ask you what we're doing? Yeah. Did you tell her? No. Did he ask? Yeah.
No.
Did you tell her? No. I mean, it's just, so I've got another interesting story that I just thought about. The listeners have, if you're new to the show, and I didn't say this at the beginning because, as some of you know, I'm out of the loop for a while. I had some time off, and it was, everybody kept going, I hope you're enjoying your time off. Not really. I want to be recording podcasts, damn it. But life just had other plans for a little bit. But I talk about my grandma a good bit. She passed last year, but she was the catalyst that launched me 4 legs off the ground in the middle of a seance, headfirst into a journey of witchcraft and the occult and just creepiness and spookiness and all things paranormal. I just loved it at that point. And that was, I think I talked about this in episode 10, but I think I was like 12 or 13 when that I did my first full-on seance with her. But she was she never called it psychic. She just said she had the sight, or she would have, dreams that came true. And I think part of it was because she lived pretty much all her life here in the South. But anyway, all that to say, she had what she called dreams, or visions or whatever, and she would dream something, and it wasn't like something that would happen in a few days or a week. It was typically something that was going to happen like right then. And the funny story was that when I was born, because I'm old as shit, but when I was born, there were no cell phones, there was no internet. And I know if you're a young witch, you're like, what the fuck is he talking about? Yeah, at one point, there was no internet, and we didn't have cell phones. This was even before back phones. We had a landline. It was typically attached to your wall, or it sat on a table, and you had to push buttons. And if you weren't at home, you didn't get a phone call. So basically, my dad was on a submarine in the middle of the ocean. My mom, and that's a whole different story, but my mom and my aunt, sisters, were pregnant right around the same time, 33 hours ahead of me, about 4 hours apart. She had time before going into too much labor, I guess, to call her parents, my grandparents. So they were on their way. They had actually just left the hospital with my aunt and were heading there. She didn't have time to call my grandmother. But by the time my grandparents, my mom's parents, got to Charleston, and I think my dad's parents might have been maybe an hour closer, so it might have been 3 hours for them. But by the time my mom's parents got to Charleston, my grandparents, my dad's parents, were literally pulling in the parking lot at the exact same time, and no one had called them. And when they asked my grandmother about it, she said, well, I had a dream that Dale went into labor, and, I told Alvin to get in the truck and we headed up here.
Wow.
And that type of shit would happen with her like all the time. Like, she would come up to me and be like, sweetheart, I had a dream about da, 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 and you need to blah, 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 blah. And they would typically come true, to the point that posthumously, because she had already kind of lost her mind. And I don't mean that in a mean way. She had dementia and Alzheimer's, but she had already kind of lost her awareness by the time Harry Potter came out. But I referred to her as Miss Trelawney because she was like, giving prophecies and all this stuff all the time. And it was really wild. Yeah. So that was my story. So why don't you, I think you had something you wanted to share about dreams and deities. And
well, through dreams, like I said before, it took me about 6 years to figure out Apollo was trying to connect with me.
I love this story. Yes.
Beforehand, I was working, which my other patron goddess is the goddess Maca. So Celtic tradition, it's totally different than, Hellenic. And it took me about 6 years. He kept coming to my sleep. And I didn't understand who it was. He didn't look like a god. It was just him, but literally, he never gave up, so to say, until one day I was in meditation and he's like, why have you not contacted me? He's like, I've been trying for how long? And I'm like, I didn't know it was you, so to say. And through dreams, since a young girl, I was very drawn to him anyways. And I guess that there was a reason, obviously, because I work with him. He's one of my main deities.
He's a little sweet on her too, but
he is, which you can. He is. I think that's the reason why I didn't want to understand that it was him, because of the way everything was playing out. Because the relationship I have with Apollo is, like I said, he's very protective. He's called me his, in a way. My full name is Urania, the muse of astrology. Rania is short for that. And he was the protector and leader of the 9 muses. So it's like everything has tied in throughout my whole life. I love music. I love the sun. We came back to the land of the gods. We moved back from New England to Greece, placed literally in the middle of where a lot of temples of his are, and very important ones. So it's like I've been placed in order to work with him. It's like it just happened. It flows together till this day. Until this day, I'm still, putting pieces of the puzzle together, which I think that will happen it will go on like that. You just don't wake up and say it's like you know everything. There's always something else that he throws out there to you. But it took me 6 years. And through dreams or through meditation, which finally it's like, it's been me this whole time. Why are you ignoring me? And I'm like, I haven't been ignoring you. It wasn't clear that it was you. Well, he made it very clear to me.
I remember after her telling me this story early on in this meeting, I remember afterwards like going, all right, listen, dude, she's like my little sister. I love her to death. So like, don't smite me or anything. But yeah, he's very protective of her. But I got to pass. I guess he trusts me enough. But I feel like he has Poseidon keeping tabs on me.
They all work. They all work together. Through Apollo, Artemis came to me, which yet again through a dream and through meditation, she demanded me to work with her, which kind of ties into Delphi, where I'm like, I'm not ready to work with you. It's like, I have enough on my plate right now. And she's like, no. You're going to work with me. And I'm like, okay, whatever.
They don't really take no for an answer. And
they don't.
This show, for example, I kept going, yeah, I'm going to start one. Yeah, I don't know if people would really like that type of show. Man, there's a lot of witchy type podcast already. And finally one day, that's when Hecate was just like, I paraphrase things because like I say, it's not always an audible voice, but with her, she screamed in my ear and got my attention. And she's like, more or less, get off your ass and quit, putting it off. And I did. And then it's one of those things where like a few episodes in, I'm like, okay, I get why I was supposed to do this now. You just kind of start figuring it out, I guess.
Along
the way. Yeah. But then sometimes you continue to think, oh, well, I can continue putting this off. And more or less moving to the beach. And I'm going to get listeners know that I don't normally get too personal. I'm more private. I try to keep my family and my loved ones, out of the spotlight of the show, because most of you are awesome, but some of you are weird as fuck, man. But I'm just kidding. But yeah, I have had some really weird messages and stuff like that. So people can be weird, man. But anyway, part of me moving here was really difficult, and I kept, and that's what I meant by when I got here. I kind of saw how all the pieces fell in with one another, but I did not want to leave my girlfriend. Our two dogs. I didn't want, and I don't mean leave like, break up or whatever. I just mean like I did not want to be long distance from them. And, for years, I think like 6 years now, we've all lived together as like our little family, our two little fur babies and us. And so, yeah, I resisted against that. And still at times, I've been here, I don't know, what have I been here, like a month now, I guess, 3 or 4 weeks, something like that. Even at times, I still miss them terribly, especially when I see another dog, because I resisted and resisted. But then when I got here, like I told Rania and our future guest earlier, it was like, I don't know, like sticking your finger in a light socket or placing your phone on a charger. It amplified and superpowered. It's like, I made a post on Facebook recently talking about it. It's like Mike and his inner power on crack times 10. It's just like, yeah, it's hard to put into words, but my magic that, I've been doing here, not that it was weak before, but
it's amplified.
Holy shit. Yeah, there are things like, for instance, hey, if you're talking to me, then tell me. Okay, I'm going to try to hit you with this conch shell right upside your head. Things like that. And so it's really kind of wild. But there was something I was going to, should we talk about my experience during the crystal wheel? All right, listener, I'll let you in
crystal wheel, non-witches.
Crystal, well, no, I just meant my personal experience, but the crystal wheel meditation that we're talking about, you can actually go to that most Thursday nights at 10 Eastern time. On the Cabot Kent Hermetic Temple page, but they do a weekly, and sometimes they'll take time off, but they do a weekly meditation, and it's themed around a particular color each week and what that color represents and what it can help with and things like that. But the crystal wheel is a construct that Lori, how high is it again?
700 feet in the air.
So it's basically, think about like people that do crystal grids or things like that. It's basically an astral version of that, I guess is the best way to describe it, that she constructed above Salem, Massachusetts, 700 feet in the air. I can't remember the year either, to be honest with you. I know it was back in the 70s, wasn't
it? It was way back.
Yeah.
It was.
And there's a lot of things that go into why it was put there and what purpose it serves and things like that. Our tradition does utilize it quite a lot. But anyway, if you tune in on a Thursday, they'll walk you through kind of how to, go into that meditation and access it. And it's really wild. I know, since you're probably already interested in witchcraft anyway, because you're listening to Son of a Witch podcast. Yeah, check it out. You don't have to be a Cabot to participate in that. And we do a lot of public things like that. You can actually attend some of our rituals for Sabbats and things like that. Right now, it's a little more restricted because COVID and everything else. But once all that's back to normal, you can attend those types of things and stuff as well. So anyway, getting back to that, we were doing the other night the crystal wheel meditation, and the color was gold. And it was a really good meditation. I think you can go back and play those.
You can go back and play.
Yeah, that's right. So you can check that one out, but it was a really good one. And so we're on the crystal wheel. And again, it's very visual if you listen and kind of do what they're telling you and listen and go along. But We're on the crystal wheel, and keep in mind 700 feet above Salem. And the way they guide you into this meditation without going too much into it is wherever you are, you kind of astrally leave your body. You can kind of see yourself rising up and going towards Salem to this crystal wheel. And so that's what happened with me. Well, I'm already at the beach where I'm at, and Salem is quite close to the ocean. So, when I'm there, I can see that. And I had just recently been talking with Rania about, Poseidon, I feel drawn to him. I feel like he's reaching out. Whatever. The conch shell thing had happened. And so I'm up there. And what happens is they guide you through a meditation that typically goes for about 10 to 15 minutes. And then for about 15 minutes after that, you have like a silent kind of private meditation. And during that time, I remember kind of in my head going, okay, I'm up there. I can see other cabots. I can see other people, and I'm looking down at the ocean. And I remember going, is it kind of the same thing? And I'm surprised he didn't like throw it at me, but, because I had already asked him the same thing, got the conch shell. But I remember just thinking like, okay, are you wanting me to like work with you? Is there something you're wanting me to do? And out of the ocean below me, at first it was just like a gold color. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm just distracted, gold crystal wheel meditation. But as I focused in, it was weird. It was almost like my eyes kind of did this zoom feature or something and like zoomed in so I could see it better. And it was a fucking golden trident coming up out of the ocean, slowly and kind of spinning. Never came completely out of the water. I never saw a hand holding it or anything like that. But mostly
That's
out of the
definitely a
water.
sign.
Yeah. And it was weird too, because, you have this typical picture, at least I do, of a trident, but it wasn't like the one that you typically picture. It was a little bit different, and it just kind of spun there and was golden. And then I remember after about 5 or 10 minutes, I was like, okay. And everything started winding down with the meditation, and it just kind of slowly went back down in the ocean. And that was it. Immediately after that meditation, one of those moments where we were talking about, you don't really hear anything, but suddenly in your head, it's just like somebody is basically flashing a neon sign with a message. And that message was, make an offering to Poseidon. And at that point, I remember going, all right, well, what can I offer you? Crickets. I'm like, well, I've never worked with you. I'm willing to give you anything that, is within my grasp that I can do. What do you want? Crickets. And so right now I've made different offerings and things like that. But that's the other thing too. I've been able to do some beach rituals on the beach at night by myself. I am in the South again, so I do have to kind of, as we discovered with our conversation. I didn't think I was being loud, but honestly, what's funny is we were talking about all this same stuff we're talking about on this episode. So I don't know what it was that I think he just didn't like the conversation. So therefore he claimed I was being too loud and I was rude. And there are families on this. I remember that's how he said it. There are families on this beach. I feel like going, yeah, but they're way down there, Hoss. And I'm talking about this shit right here. See, I used to be able to joke like that. Now people here go, he said it. You heard him, devil worship. He said it.
Yep.
And what's funny is Rania is in a very, I won't say very, but in a similar situation, in that magic where she is even looked at, oddly enough, as almost worse than here.
Sometimes, well, if you want to put it this way, you tell them that you're a Reiki master. All of a sudden you're the devil worshiper. Or it's like, no, not really. I heal. They're like, no, it's magic. Magic is bad. And because we are in a country where the majority is Greek Orthodox, yes, they do believe in black magic, or magic, if you want to call it, in general, or the evil eye. But then it's like they're still scared of it. They try to do things like, oh, I'm going to have a prayer, or I'm going to see if I have the evil eye and get rid of it. But that's a form of magic. They believe in it, but they don't believe in it at the same time.
I almost don't know if we should go further into what we were just talking about this prior to recording. Should we save that for a full episode, or should we touch on it now? Talking about the similarities.
I don't know.
So, why don't you? I mean, we were just let's just go ahead and tell them about it. So basically, what the brief conversation was is we were talking about the similarities between religions, and you take your pick, but we were talking about specifically like Judaism with Kabbalah, or Catholicism, or Greek Orthodox, things like that. And Rania has a little bit of a inside kind of view through a different lens of the similarities in magic and Greek Orthodox. What we were basically saying is that they're kind of the same. They all use energy, but why don't you kind of give like a little bit of a...
Well, like I was saying, Greek Orthodox believe in the evil eye. They believe in magic in general. And a lot of their saints were, in their view, magicians and witches that converted into saints that their prayer would protect them from that magic. And growing up Greek Orthodox and also practicing witchcraft and a tradition from a young age, I could see and pinpoint similarities between what we do and what our religion here, as in Greek Orthodox, perform at the same time. It's literally the same thing, but just in a different manner. Calling down, let's say, the angels. It's like us calling down the energy from the universe or something more in specific. It's the same thing, but people still are afraid.
Like calling in the quarters, basically.
Calling in the quarters, basically, yeah. They're literally doing the same thing, but in a different way. But yet people are very scared at the same time. I mean, like I said, you say that you're a Reiki master. Oh, they're like, I was at the supermarket and the woman like literally took 5 steps back and kind of kicked me out of there. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, what? So it's like, yes, they do believe in it. There's so many similarities, but yet they're very scared. So here, like, as you said, in the South, where you are, it's kind of tricky. I mean, I am who I am. I won't deny it, but I won't go screaming it out in public. Just close friends of mine and family obviously know what I do and who I am, but I won't go screaming it because people can become very judgy. I mean,
oh yeah, real quick.
I said, Reiki, and she's like taking 10 steps back and she's like, okay, goodbye, have a nice day, and I will not be, talking to you again. And she never did.
Well, and that's somebody that has heard Reiki and just seen that it's people doing hand things on people, and they don't know a thing about it. They just think, oh, it's mystical, so it's got to be bad. And it's funny because, like you said, in the Greek Orthodox and Catholicism is very much the same way. Now, Kabbalah, in my experience anyway, a lot of people that practice or follow Kabbalah are pretty much kind of coexistent with witches and things like that. They kind of see the similarities a little bit more. I have met some that are just like, witchcraft. But for the most part, they seem a little more understanding. But yeah, Catholicism and Greek Orthodox, they're very much like, I mean, you could literally, because our tradition is more based on the science behind everything that we do, that it is a tangible science to it. You could do that, break that down for them. And they would still say, no, this is just tradition. This is just, us doing. So
magic is real, and practicing any kind of craft is more acceptable ever since our old pagan beliefs were now legal, and seen that it's a legal religion here, that it's not illegal to practice. More and more people are actually getting involved. Now, the older generation, they still won't accept it, but the new generation is slowly accepting a more broad view of what's around us. Like, they can see the similarities at the same time. And I've talked to a few friends, and the same thing. It's like, you're a witch. Like, how can you accept, Greek Orthodox or Christianity in general? And I'm like, well, for me, it's kind of the same thing, just different wording.
Here's the thing.
It's like an umbrella.
It is. And this is a good point, you'll find on the show, and you've listened to it before you even came on as a co-host, but
Mhm.
you'll find that I like to take moments to kind of get on my soapbox about things within our community that bug me or piss me off or that I think need to change. One of them, and from the get go of starting the show, was bringing awareness that there are male witches out there.
Of
And I
course.
know most of us know that, but I did an episode one time and a lot of people really liked it. And I pissed a lot of people off. But basically, I was just, and dear, sis, I'm going to tell you, you will find that I don't shy away from controversial topics if I
Mhm.
feel like there's a good reason to discuss it. But I don't talk about politics except one time after the election, and well, that's a funny story. I'll tell you that at the end of the recording. But anyway, to me, it doesn't have to be one or the other.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I want people to understand, is that just to be a witch, you don't have to hate Christianity. You don't. You don't have to hate, and really, you shouldn't hate
Any
anything
religion, you should
or
accept
any
everything.
group. I mean, just because they think something that you don't necessarily practice or believe doesn't mean that they're wrong. I mean, in their mind, they're right. And if it serves
Mhm.
them and it brings them peace and happiness, then who are we to say that we're right and they're wrong? And if we start doing that, then we head down the path of dangerously going
Respect.
close to other organizations that are patriarchal or overbearing
Mhm.
or judgy that we don't like. Um, so yeah, I don't ever say, one of my things, and you've heard me say this on this show before if you've listened in the past, but one of my pastimes and my loves has always been theology. It's
Mhm.
been learning about any and every religion I can. And I never stop learning about them. Even if I think I've learned all I can about a certain religion, something will inevitably come up later on.
Mhm.
And I highly, of course, I do love history too, which is why Greece is just going to be like, but I love history, so it may be different for me. But I do think, much like I have preached and preached and preached on this show, that if you're going to be a witch, you need to learn the history of where we came from and what
Of
we
course.
went through and why things happened the way they did and why they are the way they are now. You don't have to. You can open up a spell book and start trying to do spells, but it's not going to serve you very well.
Mhm.
And I don't know how, and I'll go ahead and say this, and I'll probably get messages about this too, but zero fucks given. I don't know how you can say that you truly want to live the life of a witch and journey down that path if you're not willing to do that. I've had people literally tell me, I don't want to learn about that. That's boring. Okay. You're the same person that thinks you're going to go into your first class about witchcraft and be able to like summon someone with one of King Solomon's seals or some crazy stuff
Mhm.
like that. It doesn't happen that way. You have to put in the work and the time to get the knowledge and the ground base that you
Around it.
need around it. It's like casting a circle. You don't just go into, I mean, and I know some people that do. Not everybody believes in casting a circle. So let me go ahead and preface this. Rania and I are not saying if you don't cast a circle that you're wrong. But I will say this: if you don't cast a circle, you're being dangerous in my.
Mhm.
If you believe that you're not, I'm not
That's
going to
fine.
tell you that you're wrong. You do it however it works for you. Me personally, I'm not going to open myself up to the type of forces and energy that we're going to be dealing with in some situation like that. And I'm not saying to do like a candle spell or something you have to go through and cast a full on circle every time. You know, you don't always have the time or the ability to do that. But if you're doing something like full on ritualistic
Ritual.
petition or something like that, yeah, you damn sure need to. That's just us giving you a little piece of advice. I mean, we've got, I think I calculated 50 plus years experience in the craft between the two of us. But what do we know? So, um, so that's pretty much it. That's part one of Deities, Spirit, and Visions. Oh my. As I said in an earlier Instagram post, if you caught that, the recording that Rania and I did went over 2 hours long. We didn't even realize that. And it was all really good content that we didn't really want to cut any of it out of. So this is how it plays out, double episode. So by the time you're hearing this, hopefully you have been able to listen to Introduction to Rania. That's episode 4. And now this. So I hope you liked it. Part 2 will come out about this time next week, and we can't wait for you to hear it. So stay tuned. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to follow us on @SonOfAWitchPod or @MusesRealm on Instagram. You can check out the show on Facebook, and you can also go to sonofawitchpod.com. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next week.